Howdy one, howdy all. Welcome to Addicted to Gear on Sunday. Live show. How's everybody doing today? Is everybody doing great? I hope so. Today is January 7th, 2024. The first show of 2024. Can you guys believe it? We're getting closer to 2025, right? All the futuristic movies, the sci-fis, always had that date in them, 2025, where either something bad was going to happen or something really good. I'm not really sure, but we made it to 2024. I hope you guys are all doing very well today. I hope you guys survived all the holiday hoopla. I know that the holidays are a stressful time for everybody, whether you like to think so or not. I think there's also always a certain degree of stress related to the holidays. So it's good that, everybody survived. I definitely want to hear all of your New Year resolutions as it pertains to gear, if you have any. Perhaps some of you decided, that's it, no more gear this year. We're not buying anything else. Or as often is the case, the opposite end of the spectrum, where people are just, okay, this is the year where I finally buy that guitar I've always wanted. I'm not waiting anymore. So we'll definitely get to all of that, and hopefully we can talk about some of that later today. Now, as usual, a couple of things I wanted to get out of the way first. If you're new to the show, obviously you need to subscribe to be able to chat. So hopefully any of the newcomers here, they're lurking and haven't jumped into the conversation, please just subscribe. A minute later, you'll be able to chat with us all, and it's a welcoming group of people we have here. Everybody's super, and newcomers are always welcome. It's always great for us to see new names in the chat. So please take advantage of the opportunity to be able to chat with us live on Sundays. That's what the Sunday live show is all about. It's chatting. So as usual, if you'd like to support the channel, there's no better way to do that. You can just subscribe. That's the best way to do it. If you feel like you want to give us a thumbs up, do that. That always helps, get us out there a little bit more on YouTube land. And of course, if you feel like supporting the channel with a super chat, please do. It's not necessary and it's not obligatory, but it's always appreciated. Cheers, you guys. Just going to give a sip of coffee before we jump right into today's chat. I definitely need my coffee today. Now, before I forget, and how could I forget, today's a special day for me because it's my mom's birthday. She's looking down on us from heaven, and January 7th is her birthday. She's no longer with us. She's been gone almost 2 years. And of course, it doesn't get any easier when somebody leaves a loved one, loses a loved one. I'm sure many of you have gone through that as well. So I just wanted to say happy heavenly birthday to my mom. And, of course, we're thinking about you as we all do every single day. And isn't the circle of life wonderful? I mean, it's a sad thing when somebody passes on, but it makes you realize, like, the seeds that they planted, live on through our families, through our children, through their children. And it's a great, it's just one of those things that just amazes me every day. So be kind to the people around you. They're the most important people in your life, obviously. So let's get down to business, shall we? Let's talk about gear. Let's talk about guitars. Let's talk about what's been going on. Forgive the mess behind me, guys. I don't know if you guys realize how messy things are. Let me just get out of the way. I got a couple of things there. So that's, my Supersonic is lined up over there on this side. I do have another amp on this side. Here, let me just give you, I didn't get a chance to clean up. There's a whole bunch of stuff back there. The reason for that is because I was actually shooting a video for you guys yesterday. I've been up to no good on my end. I've been up to no good because I'm putting the Supersonic through the ringer one more time, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But I just wanted to first of all say good morning to everybody that's here, because you guys are the reason why we do this every Sunday, and we're like 191 shows in. Amazing. It always blows my mind that you guys continuously tune in, and I do appreciate you guys being here because I look forward to it. So Eddie's here, and Eddie had a question for Mark. He's asking if you got any snow up there. I don't know what's happening in Mark's neck of the woods. Here we're definitely getting snow finally. It's weird because generally speaking, we normally have snow around Christmas time. This year, still nothing. You know, it was still pretty good. I couldn't complain till today. Yesterday we got a little bit of snow. The next couple of days we're probably going to get a couple of centimeters, nothing big, but it's still unusual for this time of year here. We usually have quite a bit of snow. So maybe this is the beginning, and Mother Nature gave us a little break perhaps. So I'm not complaining. Wayne is here. Good morning, Wayne. And Steve is here as well. Jack. Music in Gear. Marcel. Paul is here as well. Paul says only 20 days until NAMM. Interesting. Dean Originals and now Yamaha owns Guild. Hints of surprises. Will the new Tone X pedal be ready to be unveiled? All great questions, Paul. I think there's going to be some interesting fallout from the NAMM show. There always is some good stuff coming out of that show. I think that I'm keeping my eyes open and seeing what is going to be the big draw this year. There's always something big every year. So, you know, will it be something new from the guys over at Yamaha? Guild? Will it be maybe a new Mesa Boogie amp? I don't even know if Mesa Boogie is actually going to be at the show this year. There are some people that are not attending. But I'm always interested in hearing what's going on. So we'll see. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go to the show. I would love to go to the show one year. If it's still going to be around by the time I get an opportunity to get there. Unfortunately, I'll be in Chicago during the same week, so I won't be able to go down there. But maybe I'll take a little walk over to the guys at the Chicago Guitar Center down there, Chicago Music and Gear. Maybe go take a look at some of the goodies that they have up on the wall. Who knows? I might get tempted. It's very hard to bring back anything across the border, so perhaps it's not a good idea for me to be tempted by any new gear like that. All right, Mark is here too. Mark says, what's up guys? New gear, JHS little black amp box for my Blues Deluxe reissue. So Mark is getting everything set up. Looks like you have all that you need now for your full advantage of that Blues Deluxe reissue. Now, how are you liking that amp so far, Mark? Is it an additional amp, or did it actually replace another amp that you already had? I'm losing track here because a lot of guys are getting stuff and selling stuff at the same time. So, Ben is here. Good morning. Dan of New Jersey. Davis Music. Shane is here. Let's see here. Just going down the list. Keith, Terry. Good morning. Vox Guitars Rock. Good morning. Shane says the Overlords will take over in 2047. So we got some time. I thought it was 2025. I know that that date sticks in my mind for some reason. Dan is here. Rico, Rich. Skim Rush. Resolution. Learn songs. That's always a good New Year's resolution. Learn as many songs as you can. Marcel's in a good mood. He received his new pickups that he ordered from Chris at Peg City Pickups. So Marcel, did you put them in your guitar yet? Are they still in the box? Give us a little update on those. Remind us which pickups you actually ordered from Chris over at Peg City. I keep forgetting now. I have a good memory, but it's very short. Shane says he played for about 2 hours today and his index finger is sore. My New Year's resolution is to try 8s this year. Yeah, why not, man? Try them out. Don't be afraid to try new stuff, man. Go crazy. That's the only way. You know, happy surprises happen all the time. Let's see here. Rico says, good morning, Seth, and congratulations on your subscriber milestone. So, did I miss something? Did I miss a milestone for Seth? If I did, please let me know. What's going on, Seth? Fill me in, guys. I try and keep up. But there's too much stuff. There's too much stuff happening at the same time. Alexander says, waiting for an amp on back order, but getting the brakes on buying new gear. Putting the brakes. Tired of wasting my money. Alexander, come on, it's not a waste. You gotta try things to know. I know it does get frustrating at times, because it does feel like you're wasting money if you don't land on the right stuff. But when you get that little gem of a a pedal or an amp or something, it makes it all worthwhile. I don't look at it as wasting money, because I don't necessarily keep all the gear if I don't like it. I obviously will flip it. So it's like a temporary investment, really, and the money just shifts over to other things. But when you do land on a couple of good things, man, it's wow. Shane says, happy birthday, Tony's mom. Thank you for blessing us with your son. That's sweet of you, Shane. Hopefully she's looking down on me from heaven and has a smile on her face. I hope. Thank you, guys. D-Max says, good morning. Vox says, happy heavenly birthday. Thank you again, all you guys. I appreciate that. It is a special, you definitely carry them with you in your heart all the time, but when it's their birthdays or a milestone, it's a little bit, it's a little bit extra touching that day, I feel, So Eddie says, Skimrush, I can't even pronounce that. Eddie takes time to get the rhythm and timing, so 1 week should do it, he says. And Music and Gear says, my Friedman BE Deluxe 2 rack mount preamp should be here today or tomorrow. Very nice, dude. So you decided to go with a rack mount. Why specifically a rack mount? Just curious there. But all the Friedman stuff is like great. I still can't believe I'm lucky enough to own a Dirty Shirley, because I think that amp, and I keep searching, for something better. But I think that amp is it, man. Till now, I haven't found anything else that makes me smile immediately when plugging in and just playing that amplifier, just strumming some chords and stuff. It's the sound, He knocked it out of the park with that particular amp. And sometimes I do look at other Friedman amps as well, if they do pop up on the market here used. I saw one the other day, and immediately I just go and look and compare with other amplifiers that, just look at the reviews and see how they fit in. And if I look at a comparison, I always like the sound of the Dirty Shirley. It's just a great, great amp, because it's not over the top. The other ones sound fantastic too. I'm not going to knock any of the stuff that Dave puts together. But I like the Friedman because it's a little bit, the Dirty Shirley, because it's a little bit more subdued, but it could still crank out some amazing tones. Anyway, Rico says he received his Boss IR2 yesterday. Super cool. Are you planning on reviewing one? I'd love to review one, Rico. I don't have one right now. Unless you want to send me yours temporarily, I can review it and send it back. I'd love to be able to review all kinds of gear. Unfortunately, I don't have any huge budget here. I'm not financed by anybody, and it's hard to get my hands on a lot of stuff like that. But I hear a lot of great stuff on the Boss IR2. So Rico, give us your initial feedback on that. Share some insights with us, will you? Shane says, I aim to put up 2 videos a week on my channel. Also, I have joined Nita Strauss Body Shred Challenge for the next 2 months. Awesome, dude. Oh, that's great, man. Hey, if you can put up 2 videos a week, fantastic. Go for it, dude. The more videos you put out, the better it is. Just keep them pumping out. Just pump them all out. Ben says, doesn't Gibson own Mesa? Yes, they do. Gibson does own Mesa. And Shade says, yeah, poor Mesa. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, honestly, guys. I don't know yet, because they haven't really put out any new stuff since the acquisition. So It remains to be seen. It's a mystery. And everybody's holding their breath, hoping that the next Mesa amp is going to be something to behold. Because initially when I heard the news, I was a little bit surprised because initially that marriage, that combination of Mesa and Gibson didn't make total sense to me. I always, in my mind, I always pair Gibson with Marshall. To me, that's the match made in heaven, right? A Gibson and a Marshall, or a Fender and a Marshall. So if anyone, should have bought Gibson. What am I saying? If anyone should have bought Mesa, I would have always thought that it would be someone else. But I would figure Gibson would probably go with Marshall, because we know Marshall paired up with a different company also this year. But that didn't happen. So we'll see. I like Mesa amps. I just haven't found the right one yet. I've owned many over the years, probably over 5, maybe even 6. I lost track, different models, but I don't have one here, because at the end of the day, there's always something. And I haven't landed on the right one, but it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen next. And of course, yeah, Vox says, who will Gibson sue this year? I'm sure they have a list. They probably have a list. They pay people big bucks for that kind of stuff over at Gibson. Just kidding. Just kidding. Don't sue me, Gibson. What are the border issues? Well, if you're trying to get, like, if I would go to the States and buy a guitar and try and get it back to Canada, I don't think I'd be able to do that without paying duties at the border. And then you got to get it on the plane, and you got to get it home safely. We've all seen those horror story videos where the guy's loading the all of the suitcases on the plane, just like kick the hell out of stuff. So I wouldn't feel confident that a brand new guitar, especially an expensive one, would get home in one piece unless you're carrying it on the plane with you, beside you in a seat. And I don't have the finances of Joe Bonamassa to be able to do that. So maybe it's best for me not to be tempted. Mark says the Blues Deluxe was an additional amp. Missed the loud, clean pedal platform, but it's now my main amp. Sounds so good. Gonna use it with my power trio. I think a lot of people, they kind of skip over the Blues Deluxe when they're looking at the Fender lineup. They tend to just go straight for the Deluxe reverb. I think a lot of people. The Princeton is great for home use. The Blues Junior is a great clean platform as well, but it doesn't have as much volume. But mind you, the Blues Junior can get pretty loud. I know the one I had was extremely loud. But if you have a loud drummer, you might need a little bit extra. And I feel like the Blues Deluxe doesn't get enough love in the Fender lineup. I'm still, rocking my Supersonic. It's gathered a lot of dust lately. It's been in the corner. I've been playing a lot of other amps that I have here more. But I'm doing stuff with it right now, and I'll tell you, we'll get into that in a second. I just want to go through more of the comments here before we do. Hey, Beg City, nice to see you, buddy. How are you doing, Chris? Hope everything's good. Mark's New Year's resolution isn't gear related, but guitar related. Play more solo acoustic shows and get my power trio going again, and gig. And ultimately, that's the goal, right? I mean, it's great to be able to hoard gear and to try new things, but at the end of the day, the whole goal of all this gear is to get out in front of people and play. So I hope you guys are going to be able to do more of that. Shane says, I got a gig in a few weeks, but our set list hasn't changed. So much for trying new things. So Shane, how many songs are on the set list? And if it hasn't changed, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't have to change with every gig. Always new people in the audience. What kind of songs are you playing, Shane? Give us an idea of what the set list is all about. And where are you playing? So Presley, California Custom says, I hit 144, and I'm assuming that's subscribers, not miles per hour. Congratulations. That's great. Dude, you know, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, let me tell you. You just have to keep cranking them out. So for the guys that don't know, the new guys here, Seth Presley, California Customs has his own YouTube channel. So if you guys want to continue your gear obsession, you can definitely head over to Presley's channel and take a look at his stuff. All right, let me just scroll all the way down here because I might be missing out here. There's a couple of questions. Here we have a question from Music and Gear. Why did I go rack mount? So you're answering my question, obviously. I still run all my rack gear from the days of touring, so it fits my setup with using rack mount DSPs. So Music and Gear, if you don't mind me asking, you sound like you're professional, semi-professional. If you're touring, obviously, give us a little insight. Who are you touring with? What anybody we know? How does it work? You know, explain to us what you're doing. I understand the rack gear now. Makes sense. Shane says only 4 songs. So what are the 4 songs? It's a short set, so that's cool. Gives you lots of time to, you know, to play those solos, those extended solos, a la Led Zeppelin, you know. 4 songs, but you stretch them out to 25 minutes each. That's the key. Mississippi Blue says, Tony, new guitar day. My curiosity got the better of me. Just got a heavy relic Fender Strat from China. And as expected, a load of crap. Good modding platform though. Do you have any experience with China? I do. I have experience with China. This is actually a Chinese guitar. This is a Gibson. So this is the guitar that I actually painted. This is not the original color. I made this, I painted the gold top on it. So here's the thing. Here's the deal with China guitars. You have decent guitars coming out of China, but the problem is you got to find out which sellers are going to give you the best product. Now, the thing is, there's so many people selling the same stuff, and everybody's getting them from somewhere. These are not, the sellers are not necessarily the people making the guitars, they're the middleman. So they might skimp out and buy the cheapest guitars they can find just so that they can make a decent return on their investment when they sell the guitar. But if there are some forums on Facebook specifically geared to Gibsons and Chinese guitars, and if you join those groups, there's a lot of information as to who makes the best or who provides the best guitars. You're always taking a chance. You're never going to be 100% certain that you're going to get what you buy or what you see on the photos. Sometimes they pull the old switcheroo, where basically they just show you a picture of an authentic guitar and tell you that's what you're going to get, and when you do get it, it's totally different. Some guitars are completely unplayable. Some guitars from China, I'm not gonna lie, they're garbage. The neck is glued in wrong. It's, there's alignment issues. There's a lot of things that are very difficult to fix. But if you're comfortable working on guitars and the guitar itself is playable, you can actually make a pretty good guitar out of it and end up with something that would make a good, let's say, kick around guitar that you wouldn't be worried about taking with you. Like this one. This one actually plays very nice. I like it. Is it my best guitar? No, but it's definitely a playable guitar, and I love playing it. Dan says, I'm not fond of pasta, but I love noodling. Same here. Actually, I love pasta, and I love noodling. Can't go wrong with either one. Good morning, Ken. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Eaglehead Terra says, I purchased another guitar. So sue me. An acoustic guitar nonetheless. Which guitar? You got to be specific, guys. When you say you bought something and you're here on Addicted to Gear live, you got to be specific. I need model numbers. I need serial number. No, not serial numbers, but I need models. You know, model numbers help. Let us know exactly what you got. Eddie says, well, he's asking Presley, will a fender neck fit on a guitar fetish body without too much trouble? I can actually answer that question for you, Eddie, because I did put together my red Telecaster recently. And yeah, they'll fit. Shouldn't be an issue there. Vox says, I prefer Korean or Indonesian to Chinese, but some good ones come from all of the same. I've seen good and bad guitars from each one of those places. It really doesn't, it's not really the place, it's the supplier, really. It's where you're getting them from. Shane says, people focus on the bad Gibsons, but most of them are pretty good. Gibsons are worse. Well, I don't know if Gibsons are worse, but definitely people do tend to focus, or you do hear a lot more about the bad stuff, because people will, you know, they'll get heated about getting garbage. And that's the stuff that most people will end up on forums most of the time and whatnot. But I'm sure there's a lot of great Gibsons floating around as well that you probably don't hear about. Don't forget, guys, I mean, if you look at history, Slash's original guitar, well, original, I can't really call it original, but Slash's first Les Paul guitar was not a Gibson. Was actually a knockoff, was made by someone else. You know, and it's become one of those legendary guitars. So there you go. A lot of mojo in guitars, guys. Don't forget that. There's a lot of hype. And honestly, I don't think any guitar manufacturer will always make fantastic guitars. A lot of people will talk about the early guitars. You know, the old Fenders, the old Strats, you know, the ones that are closet classics. A lot of them were duds, especially the early ones, especially the first ones. I know for a fact, Fender, the first run of Fenders, had a lot of issues with the bridge. The bridge was garbage. And people don't talk about that. You know, they're talking about, oh, I lucked out. I got a vintage Fender and I only paid it $25,000. But, you know, there was issues back then too. So you got to remember that. Cliptic says, has anyone heard good things about the Fender California acoustics? So first of all, welcome, Cliptics. I haven't seen you here before, so you're perhaps new. Can anybody chime in on that question? The Fender California acoustics. I haven't tried one of those yet, so I don't have too much direct feedback for you on that. But perhaps somebody here has tried one. Stu Pop is here a little late, got distracted. No problem, Stu. All good. So Cliptics, yeah, see, so Cliptics has just confirmed what I just said. The Appetite for Destruction guitar was a knockoff. Exactly. That's exactly it. Rico says, addicted to the IR2 amp highlights so far. So he says Fender Twin Reverb and Bassman AC30 59 Marshall Brown Slow 100 and Mesa Dual Rectifier. $199 US. So, you know, I guess Rico was really like squeezing the last drop of juice out of that. Sounds good to me, man. For $199, there's not much more you can ask for. You basically have all of the goodies in there. Very cool. I might have to check that out, Rico. Mississippi Blue says the body and neck are really nice. I'm going to attempt my first jumbo refret. Any advice? Actually, yeah, I do have some advice for you, man. So here's the thing with refrets. Okay, this comes from experience. This is the way I see it. Okay, and take this with a grain of salt. Many of you out there might not agree with me on this, but let me try and explain, and I hope I can explain accurately without having to draw stuff for you guys. But when you're doing a refret, okay, and you're installing the frets on the neck of your guitar, a lot of the frets, you're gonna have to cut your frets to size, right? And usually, you cut them straight, so they're, the fretboard goes like this. The ends of your frets are gonna be, straight up when you initially cut them. When you have to, chamfer the edges of your frets, right? A lot of those tools that you buy that have a little file in them, so you can give your frets a bevel, they're a little too steep. The angle, on those things are a little bit too steep. They're like that, where you don't want it to be so deep. You want it to be like that, right? So what ends up happening by chamfering your frets a little bit too steep, you're actually making the top of your frets shorter. It's not a huge amount. It could be millimeters, right? But it makes a huge difference, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to, because your string is going to be closer to the end of that chamfer, there's a better chance that the string will fall off the edge, which you don't want to have happen. And more importantly, you have to put in your fret slots, the string slots, tighter together, because you have less fret. So by opening up that chamfer, and from going from something like this to something more like this, you can actually spread out your string slots on the neck, on the nut, and it gives the guitar a totally different feel. A lot of people don't realize, like, fractions of millimeters make such a big difference in the feel of how a guitar plays. So keep that in mind when you're doing your refret Mississippi Blues. You might have more experience doing refrets than I do. I'm not really sure, but this is just one thing that I've noticed. So take a look at the fret file that you're using. I don't know what kind of fret file you're using to put the chamfer on the frets, but try to keep that in mind and don't go so steep on the chamfer there. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Maybe one day I'll have to do a video on that. Next time I'm working on one of my guitars. Vox says, my concern about Chipsons is getting it and finding the necks broken. So this is one thing that I can assure you don't have to worry about, Vox, because all of the Chipson guitars that I've seen basically come packaged the same way. They come sandwiched in foam and wrapped like a mummy in tape. And they must be all doing it the same way, because I haven't seen a Chipson or a Chinese knockoff guitar arrive any other way. And it actually works quite well. I've rarely have seen any issues with them shipping. I mean, they know it's coming from China. It's probably getting shipped over in a ship somewhere, on a boat. But generally, they arrive in one piece. All right, cheers, guys. It's another little sip. All right, just going through the... Paul says, I play 33 tunes, and in one shot, it's 2 hours, 22 minutes if I leave out the solos. That's a lot of songs, man. 2 hours? 2 hours is a good amount of time to be playing. 2 hours and a half gets a little long, I feel. You gotta leave them wanting for more, Paul, right? You can't give them everything. Eddie says, I freaking love my made in Japan guitars. Eddie, I agree, man. I got such gas this week, guys. I can't tell you how much gas I got. Why? Because silly me realized that Tokai Guitars has just like released some amazing looking guitars. And unfortunately, you can't get them here. You can get them in Europe. You can get them in Italy. I'm going to have to talk to my sister, convince her to get one and bring it over for me. I want to share this with you guys because, oh my God, guys, I mean, you talk wood. I'm not talking about that kind of wood, but I got to show you this, okay? Here, let me just pull this up on my screen here, and hopefully you can see what I see. Can you see what I see? All right, let's take a look at these beauties. Oh my God. Look at these things. Dude, these guitars are amazing. So Tokai has released this Crossroad edition. And it's funny because they changed the headstock. There's a cross on it. So if you're not religious, you might not like that. But they're limited edition guitars. Look at the wood on these guitars. I mean, this stuff will knock your socks off. So, these are Gibsons, really. Well, they're not really Gibsons because they're not made in China, but they're Gibsons, right? Because they're made in Japan. But I love the Tokai stuff. And oh my God, if I could only get my hands on one of these. Look at this thing. This thing is just gorgeous. It's amazing. Like, oh my Lord. Then they have all of this is in Italian, by the way, because this is an Italian store, an Italian website. They have the regular, wood where you don't have the amazing flame tops like these. But look at this guitar. It blows the socks off of any Gibson that I've seen, especially at this price point. Now, they're not giving them away, guys. I mean, they're expensive. You can see the prices down here. So they start at about $2,700. These are not dollars, actually. It's a euro. So it's quite a bit more. So they have the flame violin ones. They have the lemon drop, the honey burst. And these are the flame versions. And then they have the plain top versions below here. So they're quite a bit less expensive depending on what you want to go for. Here's a couple of gut shots. You can see that they do have the orange drops and the braided wire going to the pickups. So here, let me just pull one up here. I'll click on the flame violin here. Let's see if actually, here, give it a second. All right, let's have a look. So here we have the flame violin finish. You can see the headstock. It's got the cross on it, which is not ugly, but not my favorite thing. You can see the color on the tops here. Look gorgeous. Now this one's actually sold out. There's a lot of them that are sold out. So I guess they're gonna go fast. But look at these tops. So these are the numbers. So these are the ones that are sold out, right? So this guy's sold out. Look at the beautiful flame on this. He's sold. This one is sold. This one's gorgeous. Look at that. Holy mackerel. They're going to go fast. I'm sure this one's probably sold. This one's a nice one too. 8100. No, it's not sold. How do I get my hands on one of these? Anyways, I don't know if they even ship all the way here, but then you're looking at like $3,000, over $3,000 probably with the exchange and then shipping, duties. Anyways, guys, I shouldn't have seen it. It's too late now. It's too late. What do I do? What do I do? What do you guys think? Eddie, I want one too. Maybe more than one. Maybe eventually those will start trickling out on the used market, but I doubt it. The reason why I stumbled on that was because I actually wanted to get another Tokai 335. They don't call them 335s, by the way. There's a different model number. But I was looking for those, and I stumbled on this. And I'm like, oh no, I can't unsee it now. What do they weigh? Good question. I don't know if there's that much detail. Let me see here. Hold on. Trying to see if it's mentioned anywhere. I don't think the weight. I know they have specs. Hold on. Let me just. Here we go. They don't mention the weight. No. Kluson style tuners, 6-string, set neck. The body is they call it Morgano, African Morgano, which I guess is mahogany, African mahogany. They call it the top is maple, obviously. Canadian AAAA, like veneer. It's a veneer, but it's a special selection for the Crossroads series. The neck is also mahogany. The fretboard is Indian rosewood. But they don't talk about the weight anywhere. The pickups are 2 humbuckers, or they call them Tokai PAF CR2S. So I guess they're Alnico 2s. But no, they're actually Alnico 5s. I like Alnico 5s. Oh my lord. Anyways, these guitars look awesome. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know about that, Eddie. I do care about how much it weighs. If you've ever played a 9.5-pound guitar for like 2 hours, trust me, you'll care about how much it weighs. I don't know if they're weight relieved. I would have to check that out. But really great. Paul, if you can tell me where I can get one of these, oh my lord, I jump on it. Frank says, good morning, Tony. Get a new shovel first. Frank, I don't shovel, man. You know, God put it there. God will take it out. It'll melt eventually. So going back to some of the other questions, I'm just scrolling back a second, guys. By the way, there is a poll question. For those of you that have missed it, please take advantage of the poll question while we're waiting here. I'm just scrolling back. The question today, I'll go over the question with you guys, okay? The question, how are we doing on time? We're 43 minutes in. Okay, we got time. So the poll question today is, have you ever swapped speakers in your guitar cabinet for tone experimentation or customization? And the choices are never. I just prefer to sell the amp or cabinet if you're not happy with the sound. Second one is rarely, only if I have no other choice, but I like the amp. Occasionally, I like to experiment to see what's out there. Frequently, when a new speaker comes out, I will try it in my cab. Or the last selection is I have multiple cabinets and amps, so I do it all the time. Those are the choices, okay? So you guys, take a second to vote. I'm curious to, that ties into what's happening, the mess behind me here. I'll explain in a second. All right, I'm just going through the questions. It's me, Don P says, Gibson needs to spend less money on lawyers and more on QC. That seems to pop up over and over again. So I'm sure you're not the only one who feels that way, Don. I would agree. And maybe if Gibson would find ways of making the guitars a little bit more affordable. It seems like with every rendition of a new guitar that they're putting out, prices jump up. Let's try and keep the prices the same. You know, make a good guitar, Gibson, but keep the price. You know, it's already getting really hard for people to buy those guitars. And there's a lot more selection out there too. Stu says, so my wife got me a guitar strap for Christmas. It's okay quality and she had Stu Pop put on it pretty big. Should I feel a little cringy? Nah, man. Rock it, dude. Nothing cringy about that. I think that's your wife had a really a good idea there, and I'm sure she meant well. I would rock it. Davis says, my plan for 2024 is to finally go with a high-end modeler. Looking at the new Fender Tone Master because of the user-friendly UI. I know it's overpriced. I don't know if it's overpriced. I mean, there's a lot more expensive ones out there. Fender seems to be getting some good traction with that device. So why not give it a shot? You know, it's I think there's a lot of great positives to using a modeler. I'm not going to say that it's going to ultimately replace your tube amps, but you can definitely use them for a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of flexibility built into those things. So depending on what you're doing, you know, that might be all you need. Terry says, no more new guitars this year until the used market picks up again. Had some of my collection for sale for a couple of months and no bites as the market is flooded with COVID guitars for sale. A lot of people are talking about that, Terry. Perhaps you're right. Perhaps the used market is slowing down, but that ultimately means better deals for some of us. If you're into buying guitars, maybe the prices will come down. Hang on to your guitars, man, until the prices pick up. If they will. I mean, don't forget, there was a lot of, like, the prices did really skyrocket there during COVID. So I don't know if, you know, we're going to see those kind of prices again, but I'm happy that, you know, perhaps there's going to be more stuff for sale at a more reasonable price, because I like to do my shopping used as much as possible. Eddie says, Tony, you're correct. I saw a guy use a fret leveling beam and run it parallel to the neck to keep the most frets there. Yeah, you don't want to be parallel, but, you know, just a little bit of a chamfer will do it. What is the shipping time on a Gibson looking like? A month? 3 months? That is one of those question mark that is that is a variable depending on where you're getting it from. They vary, man. Depends on how they're shipping. Generally, I think a lot of the people will ship with EMS, which is an overseas shipping company. I would say you got to plan on at least 3 weeks, maybe a little bit more. Not really sure, depending on where you are. Nobody's really going to tell you, fortunately. Dan says, I bought an EX Guitar Effects Loop Switcher Pedal Passive Channel Switch Box from Amazon because I wanted the option to put my 2 notes M plus in and out of my pedal chain. Cheap, well made, and works. So that's a good thumbs up if anybody's looking for one of those. Dan says they were ridiculously expensive through Sweetwater. It's always good to check what's out there, guys, before you actually pull the trigger on stuff, because yeah, there's a big variation in prices. Saint Brando, he says, good morning, Tony. I think the Gibson guitars are made in the same factory as the Epiphone because I've seen some really uncanny copies. Sad for someone who doesn't know the difference. I had that feeling many times too, because they are pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised. However, the hardware, some of the hardware, not all of them, is a little cheaper on some of the China ones, specifically the tuners and stuff like that. So you got to keep that in mind. And also, if you guys are planning on buying a chipset to mod it, you have to also keep in mind that all of the sizes for the hardware is metric, right? It's not imperial, including the holes drilled for the pots and whatnot. So there is quite a bit of work to do, and some stuff is not easy to swap out. So you got to keep that in mind. Mississippi Blue says, cheers, Tony. I'll keep that in mind. This will be my first refret. I'll watch your video on leveling this morning. I watched your video on leveling this morning. Excellent stuff. Great. Thank you, man. I'm happy that those videos are coming in handy for people. I often get comments on them, and usually they're good. So I'm happy about that. Eagle says, I just bought a Guild D140 solid mahogany back and sides, sick the top, cherry burst finished, 18:1 open tuners, very dark rosewood fretboard, stainless steel frets with case for only $750. Classic Guild tone. That's a good deal, man. At $750. Hey, if you can get a guitar these days used for under $800, I still think that's a good deal. A lot of guitars are past the 800 mark now. All right, let me just scroll, guys. I'm going to scroll to catch up to you guys. I'm falling behind. Eddie says, I was looking on Facebook Marketplace. There's a shit ton of guitars out there, but a lot of junk. I agreed, Eddie, there is a lot of junk, but once in a while you do see that rare gem pop up. And if you get lucky, it's at a good price. And if you get even luckier, it's still available. And if you get even luckier still, they'll actually answer your inquiries, because that's the thing about Marketplace. It's like you're lucky if you get an answer most of the time. Anyways. What I was watching some YouTube videos the other day, and Greg has videos out there where he's just jamming with his son and a bass player, and I think it's called The Orange Room. And I'm talking about Greg Koch. If you guys know him, watch his stuff. He's amazing. I just love watching his jam sessions. And this week he was playing a bunch of Hendrix stuff. He's amazing, this guy. He really can play. Ed says, hey, Tony, and all, happy Guitar Sunday to you all. Nice to see you, Ed. Hope you're doing well, man. Daniel's from England. Daniel Scott. How's it going, Daniel? I love that that fast part. You know, when he gets to the break just before they get to the heavy stuff. I love that riff, and then when he gets to the fast part, he loses me right after that little chord break. He just gets into the sloppy, fast guitar playing that I could never emulate in any way, but love the tone. Hey Jamal, nice to see you, man. Haven't seen you here in a while. Hope you're doing good. Happy New Year to you, man. APK 1967, Happy New Year from Dublin. Nice to see you, man. Eddie says, no good deals. People are asking crazy prices for beat up stuff. It's true. You know what? This is one thing I wanted to talk about. This is what I've noticed recently, and maybe you guys have noticed the same thing. But there seems to be a big push on some YouTube channels lately, guitar review YouTube channels, not mine, but some others that I've been watching. And there's a big push on Murphy's Lab guitars, it seems. It's almost like Gibson has been put out the message to distributors that they need to be pushing the Murphy Lab stuff, because all of a sudden, and maybe it's just coincidence, but I find that there's a lot of people talking about how great the Murphy Labs guitars are, and specifically comparing them to actual vintage guitars. So I've seen, in the last week, I've seen That Pedal Show talk about it. Actually, they've talked about it a few times, but recently, as recently as this week, they were talking about and showing these guitars where they're one's playing a Murphy's Lab reissue, another one's playing an authentic Gibson, and they're just going back and forth and comparing the two and saying, you know, how great they are and, you know, how close they sound. And so that's one. There's another site, another YouTube channel called Will's Guitars, also similar thing this week, and Andertons too. You know, just talking about how good they sound. And so the question is Gibson like pushing people to talk about the Murphy's Labs stuff? Because basically they make a lot of money from this Murphy Labs treatment, really. And really it's just, you know, the look of the guitar. The guitar is technically built the same way it's always built. They're not really changing that, but they're changing, you know, the way it looks. They're aging it, basically relicking it. And it's funny because, you know, you look at the Murphy Lab stuff, people pay premium money for that. A lot more expensive to get a Murphy's Lab Gibson. Whereas at the same time, people are poo-pooing the Fender Road-Worn series, which is basically, you know, their version of relicking, right? So they haven't necessarily given it a fancy name. But at the same time, people are like, I don't want to have any beat up guitar, you know? So it's weird because on the Fender side, if it's a custom shop and they're doing the relicking in the custom shop, people are ready to pay, like, you know, thousands of dollars more. If it's a road worn, not so much. But at the same time, on the Gibson side, the Murphy Lab stuff is definitely higher tier, you know? But I always ask myself, so, you know, if the guitars are very similar, the Murphy Lab stuff apparently sounds, you know, just as good as the old stuff. So the question is, do real vintage guitars sound like reissues, or do reissues sound like the vintage guitars? You know what I mean? You know, is it coincidence that the Murphy Lab stuff sounds as good as an old vintage guitar, or maybe just the old vintage guitars sounds like a reissue, you know? So it's a double-edged sword there. But to me, it's not just about the paint. Because if you look at real, authentic old guitars, like an old Gibson Les Paul or whatever, it's not just the paint. I mean, yeah, the paint has checking, it's got fading, you know, you can definitely look underneath the pick guard and it'll be a different color because of the fade that the paint goes through over time. But, you know, the pickup rings are different. The switches are a different shape, different color. You know, just the little nib, this little thing here, made differently on an authentic old Gibson. It's not molded in two pieces. The color is different. Very hard to find these things. You know, if you have an original old vintage Gibson and you lose one of these, you're looking at $1,000 to get an authentic one, because nobody makes the reproductions. You know, but they're made differently. You can't just put one of these on it. It's not the same. Does it change the sound? No. It's really all about the mojo and the look. But you know, the knobs are a different shape. The angles on the knobs are not the same. A lot of different things on these older guitars. So when you're getting a Murphy's Lab guitar, yeah, sure, it looks great, but it's not really going to make it a vintage guitar. You have to keep that in mind. So a lot of people are getting confused nowadays, thinking that, you know, I buy a Murphy's Lab guitar and I'm basically getting a vintage instrument. Well, you're not. So what's your take on all of that? I mean, they're great looking guitars. I'm not knocking the look. I would love to have a nice Murphy's Lab aged guitar. It looks cool. It's got a lot of mojo. But, you know, it's still not an old guitar. Dan of New Jersey says, Andersons have pretty much proved themselves to be ethically challenged. I never will watch it again. I do watch Andertons. I'm going to admit I like watching what they have to review, but I do take it with a big grain of salt. Big grain of salt. I mean, whenever you're a business, you're a store, obviously your number one goal is to stay in business and to sell the stuff that you carry, right? So if it was an independent reviewer, I would trust them a little bit more. But obviously, if it's a store, they have to sell, they have to push. They can't really talk bad about anything that they're trying to sell, obviously. It doesn't work that way. Paul says, I did find a nice 2009 white FG SG off Marketplace a month ago for $800 here in Ontario, Canada. Is that an Epiphone, Paul, or is that a Gibson? If it's a Gibson, that's a heck of a deal, man. Thank you for subscribing, Paul. Thank you, man. Thank you for the kind words. Hey, guys, if you don't mind, hit the little like button, if you can, please. We got 34 likes, thumbs up. We got 54 people. 20 of you are not near the like button. But if you are, and you can hit it, I would appreciate it. Just a little reminder. Vox says he found an Epiphone Hummingbird on Marketplace, mint shape, for $80. It sold out while I was looking at it. $80? Wow, that's cheap. Are you sure they didn't leave off a zero there by accident? Raphael says, I've had people not want to pay reasonable used prices for the smallest marks of use, but then buy relics. This is the thing, okay? You're looking at two camps, right? If you're buying a guitar and it's a brand new guitar, you don't want to have any marks on it, right? But as soon as you start getting a mark on it, then you don't care, you know? That's the thing. So it's like, at the end of the day, you can make everyone happy, right? But you definitely don't want to mark up a guitar. You know, I would feel terrible if I had a chip or a ding on my PRS guitars, because I love them the way they are. I would never relic them, you know. But I have Telecasters that are reliced, not reliced on purpose, but you know, I've gotten dings in them and stuff. I'm okay with that, man. But I understand what you're saying, Raphael. Yeah, and a lot of people will actually use that, you know, if they're looking at used guitars and stuff like that, and there's a mark on it, they'll actually, you know, make a big deal out of it, even though it probably doesn't bother them that much, just because they know they could probably get the price lower if they hey, there's a ding right there. Look at that ding. You got to knock off $70 or something, you know. Some people will do that. Not me. I'm just saying some people. Raphael wants to know, how do I feel about the Eastman? I love it. Yeah, of course I still have it. I was just playing it yesterday. I just moved it out of the room because there's stuff here now. Oh, guys, see, I get distracted by shiny things. All right, let me do one thing here. First, I want to say, Eddie, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. You know, I appreciate the support, Eddie. And your subscriptions and super chats do go a long way, and I do appreciate that. It makes me feel happy that you guys find value in what I'm doing here. And also to all the people that have submitted some really nice comments over the years. I actually have somebody that I do need to not forget to answer a question. I got a question that from a viewer, and I want to answer him later, okay? Before I forget, I'm going to open it up so I don't forget it, man, because I keep forgetting. The question came in from David Parker. So David's not here today, probably not, but maybe he'll tune in at some point and see this. But I'll answer his question in a minute here. So thank you, Eddie. Thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. So let me just get to the stuff behind me here. Okay, so yesterday I was doing this. I'm making trouble. This is the speaker that was originally in my supersonic. I just pulled that one out yesterday. This one is the Fender Special Design 12-inch speaker made by Eminence that is in the stock supersonic. I went through so many speakers in that amplifier trying to find the right one. And I was at it again yesterday. And actually, I filmed a video specifically on that for you guys. I'll probably put that live tomorrow or maybe Tuesday. I'm not really sure. Maybe tomorrow. Where I actually swapped out the speaker once again. And the reason why is because I love the supersonic. I think a lot of people don't necessarily bond with the supersonic because of the speaker in it. But it's got great features. It has a great effects loop. It's got a nice overdrive channel, which a lot of Fender amps don't have. It has the mid knob. A lot of those Fender amps don't have the mid knob, which I like. Bypass, you can bypass the effect. It has a really nice spring reverb in there. So it's got a lot of great things going for it. It's loud. It's 22 watts, but it's a loud 22 watts. So I was looking at either selling that amplifier because I just felt that I couldn't get the sound I was hearing in my head out of it. And I tried a couple of different speakers. I tried Mojo Tone speakers in there. I tried, well, the original speaker for sure. Warehouse guitar speaker. I think at one point I even tried my ET65 in there. I played it through a bunch of cabinets that I have here with other speakers like the green cream backs and stuff like that. What else did I try in there? I tried an Alessandro speaker in there at one point. And so yesterday, well, day before yesterday, you guys know I'm building a Princeton reverb, right? So I have the cabinet, and the cabinet's behind me here. Let me just show you. If I can get my pot out of the way here. So that guy there, that box that's on the side there, that's the Princeton. That's the Princeton box. And in there, there's a Jensen speaker. It's a 10-inch Jensen speaker. For the hell of it, I plugged my supersonic into it, and I bypassed the stock speaker, and I just played through it. And I didn't expect much out of it because it's a 10-inch speaker, but I liked the flavor. The supersonic was pushing that poor little 10-inch speaker quite a bit, and I was playing it with a Les Paul with humbuckers. And so it was getting flubby at higher volumes, but and it's only a 10-inch speaker, but I liked the Jensen flavor. So I'm like, wait a second, am I missing something here? Perhaps I should have taken a look at Jensen speakers, like duh. Like you would have thought I would have done that first, right? Because Jensen speakers have been around for ages, and they've been largely over the years used in the vintage Fender guitars. Fender amps, not guitars. So, but like a chooch that I am, I didn't actually ever plug in a Jensen speaker into it. And you would have thought I did, right? But sometimes, you know, things happen by accident. So after realizing that the Jensen speaker sounds good, I'm not saying it's going to be the speaker for that amp, but I like the flavor of it. I started looking to see if there was any Jensen speakers out in the used market that maybe I can buy and put into that amp. So I was looking at things like the P12Q, the P12R, just a whole bunch of different types of Jensen speakers. Unfortunately, there wasn't any available in my area used. And I didn't feel like buying one brand new because I felt like it would take a long time to get it and cost me extra in shipping and all kinds of stuff, and would be a delay there. So I ended up looking to see what else was out there. Didn't really find anything. But as luck may have it, there was a seller in my area that had a set of Weber 12A150s, two of them. And if any of you know about these speakers, they're basically Alnico speakers, and they're I guess copies or replicas of the older Jensen speakers when they were still being made in Chicago, in the States. And so, as you probably know right now, the Jensen speakers are made in Italy, right? But the original Jensens were not. They were actually made in the United States. And that's the history behind all of that is quite interesting, because Jensen was at one point the biggest distributors of speakers. And a lot of companies were dealing with them. Fender, Mesa Boogie, and a lot of other companies were buying their stuff from Jensen. But unfortunately, back in the day, when somebody at Jensen had made the bad move of saying that, you know, the whole rock, well, the whole guitar music thing was coming to an end. And this was just before things were going to take off. Before Cream happened, Led Zeppelin, and all these great artists and whatnot. So Jensen kind of pulled out of the market. And they stayed out of the market, and they focused on other types of speakers for other applications for like 35 years. And at that point, Celestion took over, right? This is why Celestion speakers became so popular, is because the Jensen was not there. So all of the companies were scrambling to find other suppliers, and they decided to go with the Celestians. And that's why, you know, Celestians ended up in Marshalls and all other kinds of great cabinets over the years and amps over the years. And then at some point, somebody within the Jensen organization says, hey, you know, there's a resurgence of these vintage guitar amps now. You know, let's see if we can get back into the market. And so that's what they did, believe it or not. And they had to reverse engineer all of these great old speakers because nobody kept records back then. They were producing these speakers with certain parts, and nobody, believe it or not, wrote anything down. So they had to like figure out, okay, well, who was the supplier for this part? Where do we get this part from? You know, so they had to go out and actually buy a bunch of old vintage guitar amps. Talk about a dream job, right? If you're working for a company like Jensen, they had to go out and buy a whole bunch of vintage guitar amplifiers that had these great old Jensen speakers in them, and reverse engineer them at some point, tear them apart to see how they were built, and like actually document all this so that they could once again build these speakers. So now they're being made in Italy. A lot of them, the reissues and stuff, are being made in Italy. But it's just mind-boggling to me that, you know, a company would take such a bad move. They could have been like on top all these years if they had taken the right decision. But they're back. You can still get Jensen speakers, and they do sound great. To me, Jensen speakers are the voice of Fender amps. If you have a Fender amp, you probably want a Jensen speaker in there. But at the same time, there's a lot of issues with these older Jensen speakers and some of the newer reissues as well, because they're, you know, they're vintage voiced. So they're not necessarily going to sound great in all applications. Sometimes they might be a little harsh or ice picky, especially if they're not broken in. And but long story short, I know I'm going off on a tangent here. I stumbled on these Weber speakers, which are 12A150s. You guys could look them up. They're basically reproductions of the old Alnico Jensen speakers. And they get a really good general review from people that have tried them. So I figured, you know what? I found this guy. He had two of them. He basically was selling them. He pulled them out of his vintage twin. It was a Tweed Twin. I think it was a low-powered Tweed Twin, he told me. He had two of them in there. He was selling them as a set or individually. I just bought one. And he's like, you know, dude, you should buy both because you're going to like it. You're going to want to put this into another guitar amp. And I'm like, let me try one first and we'll see. So anyways, long story short, yesterday, that's what I did. I took my Supersonic and I recorded a series of sound samples, and I basically played it through the stock speaker. For giggles, played it through the speaker in the cabinet that's going to be used for my Princeton, and then swapped out the Weber, put it into the cabinet, and recorded that. So I have a playthrough sample of those three speakers, and I'm going to put it up on the channel tomorrow. And I want to get your feedback. Let me know what you guys feel and which one you actually like. And maybe I'm just wasting my money, but I feel like I want to give the Supersonic a chance because I think that it's a great amplifier overall, but it just doesn't have the right speaker in it. Now the stock Eminence made speaker that comes with the amp, this one, is not a bad speaker. I mean, if you listen to the sound samples, it definitely has its own flavor, and a lot of people will knock it, but it doesn't sound bad. I mean, it's a decent speaker. Eminence does make some good stuff. A lot of the other speakers that I've tried had different flavors, you know, some of them sounded honky, some of them didn't sound as smooth. But I'm just trying to find something that's going to be able to give me the nice cleans that I want, playing through the clean channel. And when I switch over to the drive channel, it has a nice smooth breakup. So that's the goal. Now, whether or not I succeeded, that's a different story. And maybe you guys will be able to help me decide. All right. I'm not going to give you my feedback on it yet. I want to give you guys a chance to actually listen to it. And you guys tell me. And I'll probably give you my feedback on the show next week. All right? I'll give you a chance to actually comment on the series. One thing I have to say, I was a little disappointed. Like, I'm not a sound engineer. So I'm basically miking up these speakers with a ribbon mic. And I was cranking the heck out of these things to the point where I had to put earplugs in because it was so loud. I was barely cracking 2 on this thing. And really the sweet spot for a Supersonic is around 4. So take that with a grain of salt when you're listening to the playback. But it was actually like breaking up at some point. I was actually recording it a little bit too hot, I think. But anyway, it is what it is. It's going to be out there. You guys let me know. All right. Hopefully you guys will be interested in taking a look at that as well. Joe says, greetings from San Francisco. Hey, Joe, how you doing, man? Randy says, I love my SS 60 watt. Yeah, the 60 watt is great too, man. I don't really need 60 watts. It's loud, but it's the 60 watt model is awesome. So basically, you guys are saying, don't buy a Relic, buy a Harley Benton and kick it around the yard. You can do that. Yeah, for sure. Daryl is here. Hey, Daryl. Daryl says, hi, Tony. I'm new to the guitar and trying to learn how to set up and work on my Stratocaster. Do you have any videos on how to set up the pickup height when installing a new pickguard. Appreciate any help. Yeah, I do, Daryl. Check out my video collection. There's a bunch of videos. I probably have over 600 videos in there right now, and I do a series called My Messy Workbench, where I basically do a whole bunch of work on guitars. I'm sure some of that might help you. And if it doesn't, let me know. I'll give you some more information. Eddie says, I don't care for Murphy Lab. I prefer guitar from a Chinese biolab. You know, at one point I was worried a little bit. I'm like, you know, with the stuff happening in Japan, not that long ago, there was some stuff happening where there was some radiation spill or something like that. And I'm thinking, if I'm buying any guitars from Japan, are they going to be like radioactive? Do I have to get a Geiger counter and check them out? Who knows, right? I know at the time people were saying that there was some radioactive. People were able to detect the radioactivity on some fish that happened to come all the way from like Japan and overseas to California. It was still being detected in some of the fish. So that worries me a little bit. Paul says, it's been said over and over, but I can take a new guitar home without playing it. See if I like it. A vintage guitar, everyone feels and sounds different. They are all different, absolutely. Shane says, disappointed with Murphy Lab. We play extra for old dudes scorching our guitars with keys. I know. Frank says, I sold my 84 Les Paul gold top last year, and the reason was it was a brick weight, was close to 10 pounds, and was not comfortable. Anything close to 10 pounds is a little bit too much, you know. Over 9.5 pounds, 9 pounds too is like, that's my limit, I would say, 9 pounds. Profile Production says, I have a Supersonic 60. I don't like it. Some info would be great. Hopefully what I just said will help you, man. I think the Supersonic 60s were awesome. But it depends on what you're trying to play through it. Paul says, I bought a Vox AC30 yesterday. That is an amp I still have never owned. CC2 model. It's about 7 years old. It has a Celestian green back. Looking for a couple of blue Alnico now. Save your money because those Alnico blues are pretty expensive, but I'm sure it would be an awesome upgrade. Eventually, maybe one day I'll actually get one of those Vox amps. Never got one. Came close, but I just missed it. Music and Gear has a question. He says, Tony, Fender used the Jensen and the JBL, the twin reverb. Both are great with Fender tone. The JBLs are nice. A lot of people love the Fane speakers, but they're hard to get. Daniel says, Celestian and Marshall factories were only 60 miles apart, which may have affected things. Yeah, a lot of people ended up grabbing what was available. And that's also why Jensen became very popular back in the day, because they were located in the States. So a lot of companies that were making guitars in the States, like Supro, Fender, Mesa Boogie, and others, gravitated towards whatever was more, easy for them to get. Okay, so let me just go. Oh, one other thing that I don't know if you guys noticed this also, and this is another reason why you got to take people pushing amps and other gear that are music shops on YouTube with a big grain of salt. Again, Andertons comes to mind because they did this recently as well. Big push on these new Black Cat amps. So you guys probably know the Black Cat amp line. They make some interesting amplifiers. They've been redesigned recently and revoiced. And a lot of companies, a lot of places, a lot of stores like Andertons is pushing them now. And I don't think they sound bad. However, you know, they make them sound like they're amazing. And honestly, when I hear the drive channel on these new amps, they sound fizzy to me. And I don't like fizz. And, you know, if you're paying that kind of money for these new amps, because they're not inexpensive, listen to the drive. So fizz is not my friend. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up selling. I had a Mesa Boogie triple crown. And I ended up selling it. Was an interesting amp, and I had a high hopes for that amp, but the drive on it was just fizzy. Didn't give me that vintage vibe that I was looking for. And I get the same feeling with these Black Cat amps. They sound nice. I want to like them, but listening to the drive on them doesn't do it for me. Take a listen if you guys have time, and let me know what you think. Eoin says, I use head and cabs as easier to move. I do the same. And using Celestion Neo Creamback cuts weight even more. That's true. And I was curious about those Neo Creamback speakers. I wanted to actually try one out. I know that they're extremely light, but I haven't had an opportunity to try them yet. But a lot of people have been talking about how they do cut down the weight. So if you're, you know, transporting head units and cabinets, that's a good way to cut down on the weight. Stu says, I love the freedom of not worrying about getting a ding or scratch on my relic guitars. I play at my desk a lot and have put a couple of dings in some expensive guitars. There is something to be said about that freedom. And when I'm playing, you know, a road-worn, I have a road-worn Telecaster, a road-worn Stratocaster, and a couple of custom-built guitars that, you know, have gotten dinged over time. I don't worry about it anymore. You know, it's all good. Whatever, you know. But when I'm playing, you know, my PRS, I try and keep it pristine. You know, so it does add an extra level of anxiety when you're playing those expensive guitars because you don't want to ding them. After the first ding, it's all over. After that, anything goes. But until you get that first ding in the guitar, there's always that reluctance to put it through any kind of abuse, if not necessary, right? Vox says, I bought a used Behringer 2x12 combo amp. Previous owner swapped out the Burger speaker for the Celestions with a square magnet. They sound fantastic, but I have no idea what they are. I think if you're talking about a square magnet, you're probably talking about Alnico. Depends on how you pronounce it. Because generally the ceramic magnets are always round, and the ones that look square are generally Alnico. You can pronounce it. You can put the emphasis wherever you want. It's a joke. It's a joke. Randy says, if you want Fender headroom, the Supersonic 60 watt is impressive, and it will drive. It has 10 tubes. Yeah, that amplifier is something else, man. It's definitely powerful. And Jamel says, I have what I need and want, so I'm not swayed by all the new gear being pushed by all the new stuff. And Jamel, I'm starting to feel that way too, you know, but I'm still constantly looking. And that's a disease, man. That's never going to end. No matter what you have, and how good your gear is, you're always, the back of your mind, you always have that little voice, but maybe it's going to be a little bit better than what you already have. And then you try stuff and try stuff and try stuff, and at a certain point you realize you probably already have the gear that's going to be as good as it's going to get. You know, at which point, you know, there's kind of freedom in that as well. So Paul says Jensen got out of guitar speakers. They burned all the paperwork. The new guys could not find the brand of paper for cones, wire, and the coils, glues, etc. They had to deconstruct everything. That's exactly it, Paul. And that's a crazy story if you think about it, right? You'd think like there'd be history. You know, you've been making money with these speakers for such a long time. Somebody would have documented it. I don't know if they actually burned all the paperwork. But apparently there was nothing available, which makes a fantastic story if you think about it. Profile says, Bad Cat, put a drive pedal in front. Profile also says, I have the Cub. And Stu says, the first ding in that shiny new Tokai guitar is going to sting. I agree, man. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I love the AAA joke, whatever. Marcel says, all my guitars are expensive in regards to my fixed low income. I qualify for government help, but a little character is allowed. Hey man, Marcel, just because a guitar is inexpensive doesn't necessarily mean it's not good. You know, it all depends, man. It's all relative. And Ewan says, now I look to buy something from the 80s or 90s from Japan rather than buying new. Exception would be PRS, especially a DGT. A lot of people love those DGT guitars. I've seen them and I'm like, oh man, that would be a nice guitar to have as well. Eddie says, I saw a Dumble pedal shootout the other day. I had to hold myself back from getting out the credit card. Eddie, which one? Give us specifics so we can also get the credit card out. I don't know, man. I like expensive, you know, sounding pedals and whatnot, but I feel so much more gratification when I can find an inexpensive pedal that actually sounds good. So that, you know, it's almost like a secret you don't want anybody to know about. And you pull a pedal out and you're like, man, that pedal sounds so good. It shouldn't be this inexpensive, and I don't want anybody to know about it. But I have a YouTube channel, so I got to spread the word. The NUX pedal that I reviewed the other day, the 65, check it out on my channel. It's on my board, and I still can't get over how good that pedal sounds in so many scenarios. The other day, I learned something new. If you ever listen to the beginning of the Pink Floyd song Time, you know, with the clocks, you guys have probably all heard it a million times. Well, I was maybe 3 days old, because it's maybe 3 days ago I learned this, when I learned that the clock sound, the ticking clock sound that you hear is actually a bass. I didn't know that. You know, that I can't do it on my guitar, but he's basically muting the strings and doing on a bass. And this is Roger Waters doing this. And if you listen back to the song, you're like, man, yeah, that is a bass. And I've never actually realized it. And there's something to be said about the creativity that these old guys had when they were playing, recording analog, reel-to-reel tape. They didn't have all of the fancy effect units that we have, and emulations and sequencers and all that kind of stuff. So there was more creativity being done, and you would find new ways to get sounds. And, you know, I've heard stories where Pink Floyd was experimenting with all kinds of stuff, even like disc brakes, you know, like the discs off of brakes on a car. You know, instead of using a cymbal or a ride, getting the sounds off of these type of things. So it's amazing to me, and I wish more people would be experimenting that way today, but I guess it's a question of time and money. So Eddie's was being drawn in by the Zen Drive and a Vertex pedal. Yeah. And a few others that I forgot. You see how we have, like, we get distracted by things and it's like, oh my God, I got to get one of these. And then we even forget what we were watching. It's just overload at a certain point. Profile Production says, buy the real Dumble. What is it now? $500,000? Is that how much they've gone up to? Crazy if you think about it, right? The price of a house. Crazy. AB Normal says, I just picked up a Warwick Rock Bass Alien Deluxe Thin Line 4-string. One day I'll be able to afford a German one. Very cool, man. AB Normal. I love that. I love that name. Young Frankenstein. That movie was so funny. And Stu Pop says, I still have the Mosky Silver Horse pedal on my board, $30 Klon. Yeah, I remember trying that one as well. Yep, exactly like how Eddie Van Halen tapped his strings against the pickup poles to create crazy sounds. So Paul says, I heard in an interview with the new guys, and Jensen actually burned the paperwork. These new guys know so much now, they can now clone any brand's old speaker, which is actually a big plus. So maybe we'll start seeing the Jensen speakers in a lot of other gear moving forward. I don't see why not. That's a cool job. I'd love to have a job like that. That would be something like I'd love to spend my time deconstructing, gear and speaker cones and whatnot. That'd be cool. So guys, before I forget here, let me just answer this email. All right, because basically, Dave Parker, which again may not pop in here, and I'll answer him personally, sent me an email. And he was asking my thoughts on the Solo TCK 12-string Telecaster kit. I don't know if you guys have actually seen these kits. It's basically sold by Solo Music. And they're the guitar kits. You can actually build them yourself. And it's a Telecaster, but it's a 12-string Telecaster guitar kit. And he was asking my opinion on them, and whether or not I felt that they were cool. And here, let me actually even pop it up on the screen here for you guys. And I'll try and give him some feedback on that, because I like it when people reach out to me, and I encourage it. And so I would be a real hypocrite if I didn't answer the questions. So here we go. I'll just pop it up and I'll share it with you as we go through it together. Can you see what I see? I think you can. So here is what we're talking about, the Solo TCK 12-string. And it's really cool because it's a Telecaster. Basically, you get a Telecaster body, but if you look at the neck, it's actually a 12-string. So what does that mean? It means that you're getting one of these, which is a bridge. And as you can see here, you have 2 slots per saddle, which is quite different. But that's what you need if you're going to be building a 12-string, right? So this is a really cool project, and I'll just scroll through some of the parts. So a standard, connector for the tone and volume and the switch. As you can see, there's quick connects on these, which I think is cool. Here is the output, well, also with a quick connect, which makes it easier. The body is bound, which is, I think, looks nice. There's the body, pre-drilled, so you don't have to worry about the drilling the holes. There you can see it without the pick guard. One thing to note is that the cavity at the neck for the pickup can actually accommodate a P90. So if you're interested in perhaps popping in a P90, you can do that. You can see the holes drilled through the back, so it actually is a string through body design. And I think the way it works is that one string goes through the back, the other string stops at the base of the bridge. And here is the headstock. Interesting. Now, I don't know what this is going to actually feel like. I'm assuming it's going to be quite a bit wider, considering it's got to accommodate 12 strings as opposed to 6. But I think it's pretty cool. You can see the back of it. No skunk stripe on it. And if we go back to the neck here, let me just take a quick look. Yeah, so the the truss rod adjustment is at the top, which is better. So it's a really cool project, this thing. You know, I haven't built one of these, but after looking at it, I'm like, this would be pretty cool. It would give you that Jimmy Page vibe. So the guitar kit is $209 US. And from reviews and whatnot, I think a lot of people like them. Obviously, there's work to be done. Don't expect it to be like perfect. Obviously, you know, you're going to have to tweak it. But I think it would make a very, very cool project. That's maybe something I'd like to try eventually. And something I've never actually done before. Has anybody here tried to build an electric 12-string? Yeah, the bridge does look rough. That's probably one thing I would upgrade. If something, I mean, if it turns out well, you can definitely put in a better quality bridge. I think that would be the one upgrade that would be worthwhile. Vox says, all necks need a skunk stripe to match my playing because I stink. I guess I would need one too. Gene says, hard pass. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. I guess it's an acquired thing. Gene says, avoid 12 DUI kits. Why is that, Gene? It definitely sounds like a lot of tuning. I have a 12-string acoustic guitar, which I like the sound of, but it's really a bitch when you... Oop, can I say that? It's really not pleasant when you have to tune that guitar. It takes a long time to tune it. Good luck doing that without a tuner. Paul says, Jensen just did a 12-inch repro of Jimmy Page's favorite. We'll have to check that out. And Stu says, how much more string tension on the neck of a 12 string guitar? Does it need carbon fiber supports? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But it might actually require a little bit more adjustments over time. That's all. All right, holy mackerel. I've been talking for an hour and 40 minutes. I'm going to have to wrap it up. Let's just take a quick look at the poll question before we wrap up, shall we? You guys are, can you guys spare a few more minutes before you jump off? I know you guys are busy and you have lots of things to do today, so I understand that. Let me just quickly go to let's go to the poll question. And I'll share that with you guys here. All right. Okay, so we have 98 votes. And on the poll question for today, have you ever swapped speakers in your guitar cabinet for tone experimentation or customization? And so the number one answer here was never. A lot of people haven't done that kind of experimentation. 49% of you said never. I just prefer to solve the cab or amplifier, which is surprising to me because really a speaker upgrade would be the easiest way to get different tone. A lot of people automatically consider pickups, but honestly, I think a speaker upgrade has more of an impact. So 49% of you said, I won't do that, or I've never done that. I've done it, and I keep on doing it. And that's part of the reason why I have so many of these cabinets here. I have a 2x12, and I have two 1x12s, and I have a 4x12. They all have different speakers in there. And that's by design, so I get an opportunity to try different things. And they will all sound different when you're playing it through different amp combinations. So you really have to mix and match. So the second most popular answer is occasionally. I like to experiment to see what's out there. I think I fall into that category. Next is rarely, only if I have no other choice, and I like the amplifier. So like me, if you don't want to give up on an amplifier and you would rather try a couple of speakers in there before making that ultimate decision and maybe putting the amp on a chopping block. I've done it with a couple of amps. I've done it with my Blues Junior, and I felt it made a huge difference and made that amp even better. Supersonic, I'm still in the midst of doing that. And a couple of other amps that I've owned. I like to mix and match. That's part of the reason why I like going with the head and cabinet as opposed to a combo, because then you can plug in different combos. You can go in a 4x12, 2x12, 1x12, and you can have a whole bunch of different speakers at your disposal. And the second last is I have multiple cabinets and amps, so I do it all the time. So that's, again, I fall into that category. And then the last of the 5 possible choices is, or only 2% of you said, frequently when a new speaker comes out, I will try it in my cabinet. Now, I don't have unlimited funds, so I can't try every single speaker combination. There's a lot of speakers out there, but I will get enticed from time to time and try something new. AB Normal says, damn, swapped out the V30 in a Marshall DSL-40 for a Redback, made all of the difference. I agree, man. A lot of people don't. My ET65s from WGS sound really good, but I have to say they don't. They're basically clones of what I have in my 4x12. Those are original roll-off speakers that are old 65 Celestions. Those are the cream of the crop for me. They really are my favorite speaker out of the bunch for Marshalls. But I wouldn't necessarily say they would be my favorite for Fenders. So again, when I actually put up the video on the Supersonic, please take a listen, spare some time, and let me know what you think, and we'll make a final decision on that as well. All right, guys, I think that's going to be it for today. We're basically rounding almost 2 hours of me blabbing here. So please give me your feedback on the videos that I put out for you guys, please, if you don't mind. And at the same time, give me a thumbs up before you leave. I would appreciate that. Thank you again for spending time with me this Sunday. I really do hope you guys got something of value out of these discussions that we have here on Sunday. We're going to be back next Sunday. And I might have to skip a Sunday because I'll be in Chicago, but maybe I'll swing over to Chicago Music Exchange or something like that. Take a look at what they got there, and maybe do a little, brief video from the shop if I have an opportunity to do that. I would really like to do that. All right, guys, peace out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday. Enjoy it. Take advantage of some time so you can play. And if you guys have any other feedback or questions for me, I'm always available. You can reach me through my Gmail. All right. Cheers. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Keep on rocking.